Hello everyone, this is Kira Omori. I have been creating VTuber models using Live2D Cubism for around 2 years now, and I have made a good amount of tutorials for it as well. I have done work for people like Emiritu, and I have rigged art of Sasuchi, Hinanatsu, Lunical, and Komochiru. I'm also the one who illustrated and rigged my own model, so yeah, I'm a self-made VTuber. And today, I'll be a moderator of this event. Live2D Q&A top-rated creators will answer questions about learning Cubism. Yay!
Yay!
Yes. We have Syafire and Yoshino with me today. So could you guys give us a short introduction?
Yes, hello, Kira. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Syafire, like the gemstone, and I've been a VTuber for about 2 years now. I focus on helping educate creatives all around the world through technical 2D and 3D art tutorials on my YouTube channel and live on my Twitch. My community is called the Eternal Gems, and we're all about supporting each other with our creative endeavors and finding a way to monetize and make a living through art and become creatively free. I'm currently a full-time content creator and freelancer artist myself. Most of my time goes into creating educational content, podcasts, courses, and worksheets for the art community. You can find inspiration on my channel and within the Eternal Gems. We are a group full of dreamers, and a huge thank you to Live2D Cubism for letting me be a part of this event. I'm super happy to be here and support Live2D and the community.
Hello.
I'll hand it over to Yoshino. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Reset. I'll hand it over to Yoshino.
Thank you, Syafire. Hello, I am Yoshino, an Italian artist and Live2D Cubism rigger. I've been using Cubism daily for 1.5 years now, and it recently became also my full-time job. I had the chance to work on multiple Live2D projects, including more than 60 VTuber models, and many more to come. With both my Twitch and YouTube activities, I enjoy creating with Cubism and also helping others in their learning journey. I truly believe that everyone can learn and be part of this amazing community, either as a hobbyist, part-time, or even full-time worker.
Nice. Thank you so much for y'all's introduction. Man, after hearing that both of you are actually full-time creators, please, I want to be a full-time creator too. Someone get me out of college. Anyway, we are very happy to have this kind of opportunity to talk about Live2D Cubism. As a creator who makes tutorials, it's very interesting and, understandable to hear that a lot of users are suffering from a lack of learning content at this moment. So we opened up a survey to gather questions and 92 people participated. We got a large range of questions from beginner to intermediate current users of Live2D Cubism. And we also got questions even from those who stopped using the software. It was definitely more than what we initially expected, and we were glad to get questions from a varied pool of users.
Yes, thank you, Kira. I'm so happy that we've had so much interest and questions about this event. Asking questions is super duper important, and it's the first part of being able to learn and grow more. So thank you to everyone who sent in questions, and please never stop asking them because you want to continue to grow in your Live2D Cubism careers as well as an artist. Asking questions is one of the best ways to do that, and I'm super excited to be here, and I can't wait to get started.
Yeah, me too. I'm super excited for this event. The Cubism users community has grown incredibly in the course of the last few years. And we did, of course, also all the questions and dumps for everyone, and especially from the newcomers. Therefore, I find it essential for us to help each other, and I'm super, super grateful for Live2D to organize this event and give this opportunity to us.
Okay, nice. And, as I mentioned previously, we got 92 questions in total. And before the survey started, I actually expected a lot of questions about, deformers and getting better rigs. And seems like I'm right. Almost 75% of the questions were about the functions of Cubism. Questions about deformers, deformer hierarchy, getting a better rig, animation effects, glue, etc. So we tried our best to summarize the questions into 8 categories, which are just, 8 general questions. And we'll be answering them in this event. There are other very interesting questions, so if time allows us, we'll be doing our best to go a little bit deeper into the topics. All right, let's get to question answering. The first question is aimed towards beginners who struggle with keeping the motivation in learning Live2D Cubism. The question reads, what are the first steps someone should take to stay motivated and learn Live2D?
Yeah, so one thing that everybody should know is not to start with something too complex. Let's say rigging a full body model right off the bat. Lots of people like starting with a chibi model because there are less parts involved in rigging a chibi over a full body model.
Mm-hmm.
It has to think of Cubism as a puzzle that you can slowly build. It has a lot of pieces, but you can slowly add them. Also remember that it's normal to have features of tools that you're less comfortable with or you have never tried to use. In fact, I've been using Live2D daily and still learn new techniques every day. And I'm sure that it's the same thing for also your favorite creators that you aspire to be like. In fact, this has been the key for me. Live2D became like a game of discovery. With every new creation, I try to add in a new feature and test a new technique.
We also know that right now rigging is very, very profitable, but we received some questions regarding concerns about learning Live2D because it has a steep learning curve and they're worried that it might not be worth it in the end. So I just want to say that the risk of not getting a huge profit immediately is high. And I also want to just remind everyone to kind of manage their expectations when learning Live2D. It'll take time because there is months and months of work behind every good rig. So don't worry if you don't reach, Iron Vertex levels of rigging after using Live2D for, let's say, 2 months. Also, if profit is your main or maybe even only motivation, the risk of burnout would increase. It's very important to have some kind of passion for art and the passion for creating something using Live2D to be able to better keep your motivation for learning it. And I'd also like to, remind everybody that any highly profitable skill takes time, effort, and patience to master. And you might even need to take out a little bit of money at first to invest in the software before getting the big bucks.
Yes, absolutely. And also a reminder for you to just be kinder to yourself. Live2D is so difficult to learn, and you just have to remember that all the good rigs that you see have months or even a year's work behind them. So don't give up on yourself, and remember to reach out for help wherever you need it. There are so many resources out there, and if Live2D Cubism is something that you care about, if art and animation is something that you care about, this goes for anything in life. Please stick with it and surround yourself by those who can help you improve and grow. And remember that creators like Kira, Yoshino, and I, and even the Live2D community itself, we got your back. We're here for you.
Well, I hope that, the people watching this video will be a little bit more motivated in learning Live2D. And
me too.
Since we mentioned profiting from rigging VTuber models, here is a very interesting question. People asked, when should we take commissions and how much should we charge for them?
Yes. Oh, Kira, I love this question. This is a really good one and a very important one to talk about as creators, especially because it's not talked about enough. Definitely needs to be brought more out in the open. So my opinion on when you should start taking commissions is when you feel comfortable enough with your tool. Make sure you're at the point where you're putting in a consistent amount of time into each model. For example, if one model takes you 20 hours, but another of the same level takes you 40 hours, then you might not be super comfortable with your tools yet. So you want to make sure that you have a process and an understanding of how long it takes you to work on a model. For charging commissions, I think there's a lot of things to be taken into consideration. There are so many answers to this question, but what's actually helped me the most and what I like to tell my audience and my community is what works well for me is looking up on Google what the average amount an illustrator makes is. So if you consider yourself like a beginner illustrator, this could be a starting rate. So right now it's about $20 USD per hour for the average illustrator. So if a model takes you around 50 hours to make, you can then multiply that by $20 USD and you can have your answer. And this doesn't always work because, for example, if you are somebody who is well known or has high demand, then you would want to increase your prices. So there's a lot of options there. You also want to compare your art to others who are on the market. If you believe your model quality lines up with expensive commissions that you've seen on the market, then that means you could probably charge as much as them. If your quality is lacking, people won't want to pay a lot for your services. One more thing to add is supply and demand. If you're getting a lot of commissions and you cannot keep up, chances are you probably need to increase your prices. Those are some thoughts that I have, and although there are so many more tips that you can learn, you can feel free to stop by my live streams, stop by anybody else, again here, Kira or Yoshino, and ask questions because we can always give more in-depth answers to your specific situation or give our opinion. What do you think, Yoshino?
I really agree with you. In fact, I really think anyone can literally open their commissions whenever they want, regardless of their skill level. And this is because a professional product comes with a very high price. Not every client has the budget to invest in that. So even if you're less experienced, you can still do commissions, just as long as you're clear with your clients on what you're actually able to do. And also remember that commissions are also a great opportunity to test out new things, since creating the ideas of a client often pushes you out of your own comfort zone. So you improve a lot more and test a lot of new techniques.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I actually like what Yoshino said that, there is still a market for Live2D rigs that are, that has still a pretty okay rig. You don't need to have a really huge range. You don't need to be a super pro to start commissions. And yeah, so don't be afraid to start commissions as long as you feel comfortable with working with Live2D. And now for the third question, we are getting more into the technicalities of the software. And this time, this is a question about deformers. We actually received a lot of questions about this. The question is, when should we use deformers and how do they work?
Yeah, first of all, we should probably understand what a deformer is. Put simply, deformers are just grids that you can use to deform your objects to be able to make it move. It's very important to use them and organize them well for different reasons. The most obvious one is that a good deformer hierarchy allows you to create complex movement on the same object without it breaking or having unexpected shapes creating. And a well-organized model is also much easier and faster to revise, edit, and upgrade. To understand the hierarchy, you need to know the words parent and child. If you have two deformers, A and B, let's consider if the deformer A contains the deformer B, this means that A is a parent of B, and of course B is a child of A. Since the deformers are grids, as we said, one deformer can contain multiple art meshes. My biggest general tip on understanding what the deformer should be a parent of what is to think of the movement of what movement is more global or wider. I realized this by studying the free sample models on Live2D Cubism site that I really advise everyone should download and study as well so you can learn the default setting up of a model. In my general experience, I noticed that if you follow this scheme, starting from the highest parent, you will mostly have a good hierarchy. So you start with your Z deformer, then your Y deformer, then your X, and then your physics. Also, I generally advise that you always use deformers, almost always use deformers instead of the arm meshes directly. unless there are some specific cases when you need a very precise deformation. For example, the eyelashes or the mouth lips, and in that case, we use the art mesh directly instead. In fact, contrary of what you might think, often less deformation is better. This is because if you mess up too much on your art mesh single vertices, you might end up ruining the proportions. And this is why deformers are nice to use, because they have these control points that are called Bezier control points that you can grab to move your object more organically and keep good proportions. And also a good hierarchy can also make your file lighter, optimizing the number of deformers you use and avoid using more than are actually needed. For example, if you have a deformer for your head in the angle XY, you can just drag and drop in the same deformer other objects that should have the same deformations. For example, a blush or a face tattoo. And if you use the art mesh directly instead, you will have to edit manually also the blush and the tattoo or whatever you want to follow the same movement as your hand.
Thank you for your answer, Yoshino. That is actually a very good, concise discussion of what deformers are. And I actually agree a lot with looking at Live2D sample models on their website so you could better understand what the deformer hierarchy is. And yeah, thank you again. Now for the fourth question, I feel like a lot of people, especially intermediate users, will be interested in this because a lot of people would like to know how to make their models look better. So we actually came up with 2 questions for this category. And these questions are, how do I make my 2D VTuber look more 3D? And what are some tips for rigging models to make them look their best? I'll be answering first. So when I rig, I try to think in a 3D space. I can visualize shapes in 3D pretty okay since I've been rigging for a while. But I think there are some people who have trouble with it and also have a difficult time translating it to Live2D Cubism, which is, personally is sometimes an issue for me. So Sketchfab, the website, the link should be somewhere in the description or on screen. It is actually great for when you want a quick 3D model reference for objects that you are not very familiar with. And the video that will be linked here is also very helpful for when you need a guide for face angles. I actually used Sketchfab a lot when I was rigging Taisho Jio's model. It proved to be really, really helpful when rigging his cap. Maybe you could see a video clip of the rig right here. Just look at how nice it is. Also, having more filler layers for the hair is also helpful. And you could see on this Twitter clip, to better understand what I mean, please do check out Pinkazuki Blue's Twitter thread on this, and it's a very nice technique to express some kind of volume in your model. This can also be applied to other parts besides the head. And another technique that I like to use is basically I have a base color and then a texture/shading part which extends beyond that base color, and then a line art part. If you're familiar with working with 3D models, this is very similar to what texturing is, where the base color is your mesh, the texture/shading part is your, texture, and yeah. I use this technique a lot when I want to express simple 3D shapes in Live2D Cubism. I use this technique on my model's hair buns and back of the head. I should have a short tutorial on my channel by the time this video is up.
I really agree with Kira that to rig properly your model in a 3D looking way, the best reference that you can use are 3D models. But did you know that you can add a reference picture right on top of your model so you can follow it precisely? You just need to drag and drop your reference picture onto your model and set it as a reference. Like this, you will have a semi-transparent reference on top of your model to line up your rigging to. For the best result, you can even ask the artist or do it yourself, to draw some sketches of your head, different angles or whatever you need, so you have a precise reference specific for the model that you're working on. Another tool that I really use a lot for a 3D looking model is onion skin. A 3D object that is moving around had to keep good proportion, and by using the onion skin, you can ensure easily that the proportions are gradual and correct by having a seamless movement and not having weird deformations along the movement. You can enable this by simply clicking on the bottom of the screen the 3 circle dots that are there, and make sure to use this tool because it's very, very useful.
Thank you for the tips, Yoshino. Those are actually really helpful, and I use them a lot when I'm rigging. Especially the tip about requesting the artist for different head angles. That really upgraded my rigging, and I could express the artist's style more. And moving on to the fifth question, this is about animation. The question reads, what is the best way to go about learning animation in Live2D?
Yeah, so one of the best ways to learn animation for Live2D Cubism is by downloading the sample data on the Live2D website, as Kira and Yoshino both mentioned earlier. It's one of the best ways to learn. Because if you can reverse engineer or take the pieces apart, it really helps you understand. I'm personally a very hands-on learner, so the more I can fiddle with like the layers and like click around and open things myself and be able to be interactive with it, the easier I can learn. And I think that stands true for most artists. So there are animation examples that you can actually open up that are directly on the Live2D website. You, as I mentioned earlier, taking it apart and reverse engineering is going to be your best bet, and then try to apply that to your own model, even if it's only a small part at a time or taking one piece and trying to replicate that on your model. And if you're struggling technically with animation itself, I recommend a book called The Animator Survival Toolkit. You'll find the link in the description. It's a great book that will teach you about the basics of animation, which will not only help with animation in Cubism, but also when rigging your models. It is a phenomenal one that everybody should have. The whole book is filled with different examples of running canines, running characters smiling, jumping up and down, etc. And it's just, yeah, it's a wonderful resource. And yeah, Kira and Yoshino, if you guys don't have it, time to get it.
Yes, I should.
It's amazing.
Man. Yes, thank you for that. I really should get my hands on that. Oh my gosh. Okay. For another tip for beginners, Live2D has an official tutorial that showcases the basic functions of the animation mode. It should be linked somewhere below. I used this tutorial when I had absolutely no idea how to animate in Live2D. I remember wondering, how the heck can these people do idle animations? Oh my god, I really don't know. Well, that Live2D official tutorial has all of the things that you need to get started. And I found that it's pretty easy to use because I had quite a lot of experience with MMD. Hey, if anyone knows it, comment down below, fellow weebs. So the dope sheet and the manipulation of the parameters were very, very familiar to me. Hello, Yoshino.
Oh, hello. I think that the animation tool in Cubism is often actually forgotten about by overseas users especially. In fact, I realized that many people don't even know that it exists because they never opened it or tried to use it. But it's actually a very powerful tool. In fact, it can make your process so much easier if you're trying to make an animated emote, animated alerts, or backgrounds. In fact, you can use it even for many different things. Also, idle animations on your model. Let's say that you have, for example, some wings, and you want your wings to kind of flap continuously. That's a very good option to do that.
Yes.
Or maybe you would like to create an animated background, for example, like the ones that you see in video games, in character choosing screen. And the good part about that is that you don't need to draw frame by frame, only one illustration divided properly with the proper layers, and you can use that. For me, it's so much faster because I don't know how to do frame by frame animations. And the way it works is technically quite easy. It is divided in two bigger steps. First, you need to create the parameter movements. So this part is very similar to when you're just rigging a model. So you create the parameters to decide and set up the movements. And then the second part is you go in the animation section, and in there you will have a timeline where you can place these little dots in each parameter row. So it's like you are instructing Live2D Cubism to move the parameters to certain values as time passes. And by doing this for every single parameter, you will have all of your different movements be synchronized and moving nicely all together.
Nice. Thank you for your answers. And I hope who's anyone watching the video who doesn't have an idea what animation is, you'll have a very good idea now and create your own nice little idle animations and little gimmicks in your model. All right. Now for the 6th question. This is about the tool that even Live2D pros fear. It is called Glue. Oh God. So Yoshino here, she will be explaining what Glue is used for in Live2D and when we should use it. She's just the one who has the most experience with Glue among all of us. So yeah, go ahead and enlighten us, please.
Yeah, I might be a psychopath because actually I think Glue is your best friend if you're a rigger. I really love Glue. And this is because, put simple, Glue just acts like it name says. So it glues two art meshes together. This comes in very, very handy if you have multiple movements happening on two art meshes that are supposed to be attached regardless of how they turn and move around. A good example for these are, for example, the hips section of a model and the torso. These two art meshes will be affected by a lot of movements depending on your model and your style, but usually they are affected by your body Z angle, by your body X, body Y, or maybe even hips X, hips Y. And here Glue really comes to save us a lot of manual work, because without the Glue you would have to create a different parameter for different deformer for each of these parameters to fix the movement so that the hips and the torso stay attached. And trust me, it will be a mess because every time there will be one movement combination that breaks it. So really Glue can help you a lot in here. And also, as we said earlier, by using all of these deformers, your model will be so much heavier. So speaking practically, in order for your Glue to work, you need to adjust your meshes to have their vertices in the same position in the section that you want to glue. Basically, when two vertices of different art meshes are in the same position, so in the same coordinates, we can say, you can select and bind them. This binding makes the two vertices kind of hug, so they will move together and stay attached to each other regardless of what movement they are involved into. But if you have ever tried using Glue, after you have done this, you might have noticed that the movement and the transition between the two shapes is not very smooth. And this is because you need to adjust the strength of the vertices binding in order to have a smooth transition between the two glued part and the static part. And To do this, I really advise you use the glue tool slowly, turn down its effectiveness, and really start painting on these two art meshes. They will have two different colors. Usually the one art mesh is going to be red and the one art mesh is going to be green. Instead, the middle part where they are connected is going to be yellow. I'm saying that you have to paint them in very slowly, because many times once you have done the painting on one section, there is no going back. So again, turn down the effectiveness and work gradually. So as we said, these two colors, red and green, represents your two art meshes. And basically what happens is when the vertices from two art meshes are hugging, so they are binded, they are still pulling from their own sides. So the green vertices are pulling the red ones to go towards the green art mesh, and the red ones are pulling towards the red one. So what you need to do in order for your glue to look good, for example, on arms or legs as well, you need to decide how much pulling will be towards red and how much pulling will be towards green. By default, when you bind two objects, the whole connected section will be fully yellow, which means that the pulling on all of the vertices is 50-50 equal on both sides. But again, especially if you're working on arms or legs, you technically want only the middle section to be yellow. So basically you want to create a nice smooth gradient going from red, slowly gradient to yellow, and then to green. Like this, your movement will be smooth. And those were my tips on glue. Of course, you have to test and try. What you might do is actually just create yourself just, I don't know, an arm model or a leg model, and just test on the glue. Give yourself time, and once you get the hang of it, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be your best friend, and you can also create incredible effects with it. So don't be afraid of it and really practice it.
Thank you, Yoshino. I hope the people watching this video are less afraid of glue. I definitely am now less afraid of glue.
I understand so much. Yes.
I'll
Such a good explanation.
Yes, I agree. I definitely would try using it more. Honestly, I'm a different type of masochist. I adjust things manually instead of using glue.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, let us move on to the 7th question, and this is about physics, a topic that really interests a lot of, Live2D Cubism riggers. So the question reads, how do physics work in Live2D Cubism, and when should I create and apply physics?
Yes, Kira, great question. Thank you. So physics are a great way to give your models life and movement. You should really be adding physics to anything that you would like to move, have bounce and to have flow. So it doesn't work traditionally how you would think physics are. Sometimes physics are applied to weird things that you wouldn't really think they would be applied to. For example, there are really great pretty eyes that some models have. You may have seen some posts on Twitter where they are super sparkly and they bounce a lot when opening and closing. So that is a great example of applying physics in a spot you wouldn't normally have physics. So that's all due to the physics engine, which is in Live2D Cubism. So be creative with physics and ask yourself where you can put them to enhance your model and make it more lively. And next, you'll be hearing from Yoshino.
Yes, that's really the point. Whenever I'm working on a VTuber model, I think that once I start adding the physics, that's when really the model comes to life. And it adds a lot of extra movement to your model. Basically, your model will have some tracked movements, which are, for example, your head angles, your mouth moving, or your eyes blinking, those are tracked movements. So their input will be your own face. But then to those tracked movements, we can add physics as outputs. To work with your physics is very important to understand the input and output concepts. You can think of input as the cause of a movement and the output the movement itself. For example, you can put as an input your head angle X, and as an output your hair swinging. So input, your head moves, output, the hair swings. And you can use also these ones again for also like Syafire said, unexpected places. Also, for example, on your mouth moving, you might not think of it, but if you can add a little bit of bounce, that is probably gonna be not noticeable at first, but it's a very subtle little bouncing movement that can really help your model come together and come to life. So really experiment with your physics. I literally like to put physics basically on every element of my models, and that's what really makes them bouncy and all nice. So yeah, really try to experiment with those. And again, don't be afraid of those. Just try it. I realized that I never really 100% am sure what the physics will look like. You can try to tweak out all the numbers and the settings, and you will find eventually the perfect physics settings for the specific piece that you are making.
Thank you for your answers. So if you guys want more specific information on how to do physics for hair, clothes, etc., all of us would have tutorials on our YouTube channels, and there are also resources on Twitter that are helpful for physics. One example is Celia's resources for physics, her body rigging, body physics, and also her hair physics. Please do check her out. And now we are on the last question, and this is about finding good learning resources for Live2D Cubism. There are some people, especially beginners, who are just, overwhelmed and don't really know where to look first. So Syafire would be here to help us with that.
Yeah, so there's definitely a huge lack of learning resources out there, but it's growing every day, including making this video, which has already been super helpful. Even for myself, I'm still learning a lot, and hearing Yoshino and Kira's answers have brought a lot of insight, and hopefully they have for you as well. So as we mentioned earlier, downloading sample data and models from the Live2D Cubism website, I honestly think that is the best thing you can do for yourself. If watching tutorials gets a little bit stale for you, you can watch bits and pieces, but then open the sample data and look at that on the website. And again, seeing what is going on in those, reverse engineering, so helpful. I would also recommend checking out the documentation on the Live2D website and taking notes. I actually remember when I was learning, I went to a coffee shop every Sunday and I'd bring my laptop with me.
Oh my gosh.
I'd bring my laptop and I'd bring my notes and my colorful pens and I'd read through the documentation and I would take notes and sort of like label like physics. So then I knew how or where to go when I needed certain things. So
that's dedication.
It really helps. And there's documentation for so many things out there. And I'm glad that Live2D has it as well, because documentation is very important. And so that's something I did a lot when I started. Another thing I'd recommend is when you start learning is getting involved in the Live2D Discord and finding downloadable documents and resources there. They have different sections where you can download and look at what they have to offer. And you should also subscribe and keep up to date with creators like Kira, Yoshino, myself, Brian, and so many more, because you'll have access to tutorials so that they can continue to help you to learn. It's important to always stay up to date with things in your industry, especially if you're planning on doing this professionally. You want to know when those changes are being made. So don't ever be afraid to ask the educators in the community for specific tutorials. We are here to help you out always. And I love hearing about all the tutorials that you all want, because then we can provide better education for you. So if you are struggling with something, please say something, because sometimes there might be something you're stuck with and we don't even know that it's a problem because maybe we brushed over it, or because we've learned a bit more. We forget where the beginner mindset can be. So please reach out, get involved in the community, and never be afraid to send an email, DM, or figure out something to the answers to your questions. We're here for you. And I'll pass it back over to Kira.
All right. Yes. Please remember that we are here for you, though. I might be busy, I might reply late. But, every time I stream, bro, feel free to ask any Live2D questions. I miss getting questions in my streams, man. And yeah, don't be afraid to request for specific tutorials. Every time I post a whip and you're wondering about something, ask me. I might post a quick video just like what I did recently for the fast angle XY rigging thing. And yeah, for this event, we have received some very specific questions in the survey, and some definitely deserve their own tutorial videos. So we're sorry that we weren't able to cover all of the questions. We just feel like some questions need their own special thing. So keep a lookout for, tutorials from us. Though I think I'll leave it to the other creators in the meantime, though, unless it's something that's very quick to show. I'm going to be in my final year in college in a few months, and I'll be super busy. And right now, streaming my workflow is the only way I could, provide information. So yeah, every time you see me stream, go ask your question. More than happy.
Like Kira and Syafire said, never stop searching for learning resources. And like I also said earlier, everyone has their own technique. Everyone has their own special feature that they are more skilled in. So even if I personally watch every tutorial that I find, even if it's by someone that I think it's less experienced than me, I will still watch it, because you might learn something new from every tutorial. And also, I think that watching other people's process is very important. Unfortunately, it's not maybe gonna be like a tutorial where someone explains you precisely what they're doing, but still, watching other people's stream or video processes, and there are a lot on YouTube and on Twitch as well, you can just follow along and you will discover even maybe a different workflow. You might discover new ways of rigging faster as well, since rigging can take a lot of time, even a full month or even more. And that's how I really refined my work. I think that if you are trying to find, if you already learned the basics, but you are looking into improving your work to becoming more professional, I think this is the best way to study the professionals' work. So look at their streams, see what they do, and also I am very sure that they will not mind a couple questions, like the other says. I am also very happy to receive questions as I'm streaming, also because I can show you very easily the answer. And yeah, feel free to ask for help. I think that's the most amazing part about our community, everyone helping each other and growing with each other. So don't be afraid. And these were my tips.
Yes, I hope that after all of our messages, you guys are less afraid of learning Live2D. We know that it's very overwhelming, like literally. The first time I opened Live2D, I was like, oh my god, what are all of these buttons? What are all of these labels? Oh, I didn't swear. Wait, okay, redo. Oh man, I don't know where to start. Things like that. Now there are a lot of resources available and a whole lot more people who are willing to help you. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. And now I've stopped babbling. I think that's the end of our Q&A. It's been very, very, very nice to have this kind of opportunity to try to answer everyone's concerns. I would like to thank Syafire and Yoshino for sharing their highly valuable insights. And I'm also thanking the Live2D Cubism team for giving us this kind of opportunity.
Yes, I'm in complete agreement with you, Kira. It is extremely scary opening Live2D Cubism. I remember the first time that I was trying to learn, I was like, why? Like, why did I get myself invested?
Why?
But you start learning, and it's honestly so rewarding. Like, I think animation with art, it's one of the most rewarding things in the world to see your art come to life and to see, even if you're just on the rigging end and you don't draw yourself, to bring other artists, like to bring their art to life. They're like, whoa, this is so cool. And it's truly so worth it. It's worth the payoff. And I would do it 100 times over again to learn Live2D Cubism. All the hours have been worth it. So thank you so much for hosting, Kira. I really enjoyed my time here today. And it was, Yoshino, you've had so many great insights that have helped me deeply as well throughout this conversation. And I'm just really happy that we can all come together and help better educate the Live2D Cubism community so that we can all grow.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks to you for thanks to Live2D and Kira and Syafire for making all of this possible. I see that the same thing it was for me as well. So for everyone that is learning Live2D right now, you're already doing an amazing job, because also me, the first time I opened the program, I got scared and closed it. So if you kept it open, if you didn't close it, you are doing already an amazing job. So don't worry. Thank you. Thank you for sending questions, and thank you for watching this video. Working together, we can all improve. And I really look forward to other occasions like this in the future. Thank you to everyone.
Okay, thank you again. And to the viewers, thank you so much for watching this video. And we hope that this event can help all creators who are having trouble learning Cubism. We hope that we can see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.